All right. Lights, camera, action. Option A, option B, option A, option B. Welcome, friends, to Manly Monday, a monthly celebration gathering for your other brothers. We are a community navigating faith, homosexuality, and masculinity together. And my name's Tom. I'm the editor and co-founder of this here community. I'm so glad you're here. So glad you're joining us. This is our second Manly Monday from the new set with the new dynamic, the new way of doing things. And there's a fly. That is not welcome here. Today's episode is all about twos. We have two chairs. So first of all, I need y'all's help because y'all are the ones watching. Y'all are the ones that this is for, and this is for your aesthetic enjoyment. So we currently have two chair options for your other brothers. This is the chair that I used in the old videos, and it's a great chair. It's an Amazon chair. It's very plush, and I like it. I'm wondering how it fits into this whole dynamic. The other chair is an old granny rocking chair that came with my apartment that I'm currently in right now. And that was what I used in my last video. I just used it. It was sitting here. I was like, oh yeah. But then I forgot about this chair, which is just right over there, beyond the barrier. And so I'm curious now, which chair is best? So throughout this video, I'm going to be randomly going back and forth between the two chairs. And so I'd love it, firstly, if you commented below, which chair do you prefer? This is the big pivotal question that will direct your other brothers for untold millennia. We're also talking about, in this episode, two storms. Two storms in scripture, and I have a lot of thoughts. So I've been reading a lot about Jesus lately, and it's been great. I've been reading back through the Gospels, a routine and a rhythm that I've not been in a really long time in my spiritual life. And it's been so good to be able to read about this man that I follow, that I think I know everything about, and I'm realizing as I read through the Gospels that I know nothing. And I'm learning new things, seeing new facets of this God-man's personality that I didn't even see before. And reading stories that I thought I knew and seeing details now. It's kind of like rewatching a movie, which I hate doing. I hate rewatching movies, and I think that kind of says a lot maybe about why it's hard for me to read the Bible, because I've grown up with it my whole life. I feel like I know everything there is in there, and yeah, I am nobody and I know nothing. But I'm reading through the Gospels in my morning, just routines, getting up in the morning, and I'm reminded of a tweet. That's it, we're getting current with the tweets. I'm reminded of a tweet from one of my favorite people, but one of my favorite podcasters, radio hosts, believers, so wise. His name is Brian Hansen. He recently tweeted this, and I quote, "After a day of news and the internet and blah blah blah, I like to read the Gospels at night because seriously, Jesus is the only one who makes any dang sense." Any dang sense. And gosh, I resonate with that so strongly, with life's craziness and everything that makes no sense in this world. I am starting my days with Jesus, and all of a sudden for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, I blogged about this on my personal site, but for 5 minutes and 10 minutes every morning, life all of a sudden makes sense. And I wish that feeling, I guess it's more than a feeling if it's a truth, I wish I could personally stretch that out my entire day long, because gosh, when I look at Jesus, his mission of constantly going to people and then going to the Father, life just makes so much more sense. And I want to focus on, like I said, not one, but two stories about two storms that he and his disciples went through and endured, and lessons and the applications that came from those two storms. So the first storm comes from Mark 4, and it comes immediately after Jesus tells the parable of the seeds and the sower. On the same day, when evening had come, Jesus said to them, his disciples, "Let us cross over to the other side." Now when they had left the multitude, they took him along in the boat as he was, and other little boats were also with him. Like, I don't remember other little boats. Do you guys remember that? There were other little boats too? Apparently. It continues. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves beat into the boat so that it was already filling. He was in the stern, asleep on a pillow. And they awoke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" Then he arose and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. But he said to them, "Why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith?" And they feared exceedingly and said to one another, "Who can this be, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" And this verse, especially Mark 4:40, when Jesus asked the disciples, "Why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith?" This is actually a very pivotal life verse for me. Recently did a brand new podcast, a bonus podcast for our Patreon supporters called the Yabalog. And in our premiere episode a couple weeks ago, I shared about working at a camp, a summer camp for boys, Christian camp, and going into a mud wrestling pit as one of the staff week, like sort of a rite of passage bonding experience type of an activity where I jumped into a mud pit with 4 other dudes to wrestle a kickball back to my side of the hole. And in some senses traumatic. In many ways, entire staff week, very traumatic, very disheartening. Felt completely out of my element among the other men. Didn't feel capable at all that I could be a counselor to kids for a summer. It was a very trying, difficult time. And I was actually, I literally mentally had crossed over into I'm quitting, I can't do this. And various circumstances kept me there. And I survived that summer, and it was a great summer. And I think by the end of the summer, this verse was something that really convicted me because Jesus was there the whole time. I'm learning more than ever that God never goes away. He's here. He's here in this room. He's here where you are. And he was there in the boat with them. He was there with me at camp. And I doubted so much that I could do it, that I was capable, that I could survive, that any kind of thriving could happen, certainly. And by the end of the summer, it had hardship, it had issues that I had to work through. But by the end of the summer, it was one of the most pivotal summers of my life. And I'd like to think that the kids that came in and out of my and my co-counselor's cabin, that they grew a lot and they experienced a lot. And that if I had quit, if I had left, if I had jumped overboard, that none of that would have happened. I never would have experienced that, and it could have affected other lives too. It was a very convicting verse when I was reading that at camp. This whole notion, why are we so fearful? Why do we doubt that God is with us when he promises to be with us to the end of the age? And if we believe in an omnipresent God who's always everywhere, outside of time, inside of time, here, now, there, beyond, this chair, he's everywhere. And we need to stop doubting. We feel like the wind and the waves are about to overtake us, and all he has to do is stand up at a moment's notice and say 3 words, and it's over. He's over all of it. That's the first storm story. And then the other storm story comes from Matthew 14, and this comes right on the heels, once again, another lesson, Jesus talking to 5,000 people, feeding 5,000 people, and then kind of saying, all right, out of here. It says in Matthew 14:22, immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. Now when evening came, he was alone there, but the boat was now in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves, for the wind was contrary. Now on the 4th watch of the night, Jesus went to them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, "It is a ghost." And they cried out for fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Be of good cheer, it is I, do not be afraid." And Peter answered him and said, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." So he said, "Come." And when Peter had walked down out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw that the wind was boisterous, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him and said to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" Then those who were in the boat came and worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." Once again, another storm, another boat. It feels like the same old story, and yet there's so many differences here. This one, Jesus isn't in the boat with the disciples. And I think this is a great picture of how life often works. On the one hand, he's always with us. He was with me at camp. He's with you in your storms. And then in other contexts, he is beyond, in a sense, that there's something that he wants us to work toward and go to and not be content with where we're at. And for me, I always jump right back to moving out of my parents' house for the first time. I was isolated, but it was safe, it was comfortable. But slowly, surely, and really awfully, draining me of my life force, draining me of my passion, and ultimately why am I here on this planet? And had an opportunity to move all the way across the country and start a new life. And in a way, it was like Jesus walking on the waves, like, come out. It's fine. You're gonna survive and you're gonna make it out there. And I love how Jesus is such a man of few words. So many times, like he could say 3 words, peace be still, and calm the storms. And for Peter, it's only 1 word, come, the word come. And just no explanation, like, oh yeah, gravity, physics, science, blah, blah, blah. None of that, just come. Like, I'm right here, you're over there, come. Jesus is just saying come. And there's confusion, it doesn't make sense. How am I gonna be held up if I keep going this direction, or if I change course from where I was and now I'm like reorienting myself toward you? You start looking around and you start looking at finances and you start looking at relationships and you start looking at all these other things. For people like me, people like us who are watching, who have issues and wrestlings, really hard temptations and battles with sexuality, issues with masculinity, it can be a lot. It can be so much to take us under. At the end of the day, at the end of the night, at the end of the storm, I want to remember Jesus' single word, come, and that he calls us to something greater. He's with us in the boat, but he's also calling us to something greater. And I hope that a little bit more every day, all of us, that I can step 1 step further today than I did yesterday on those waves toward him. I want to hear what you guys think. What are some storms you've had to go through in your lives? Storms where you felt like Jesus was with you, storms where you felt like he was so far away. And then what are some things, missions, purposes, geographies that he's called you to that you've taken in faith, steps that you didn't think you'd survive? I'd love to hear stories. This is a story-driven community, and we thrive on the story. So I'd love to hear your story, your Jesus stories, your storm stories. You can comment below on this YouTube video, or you can go to our video episode page at yourotherbrothers.com/video and find this video and share your story on our site. I'd love to trade more stories and exhort one another. That's what we're all about. Once again, also, don't forget to comment on Chairgate. That's not right. It's not a controversy. Chair-a-palooza. I don't know. We have 2 chairs and only room for 1 in this video. I'd love to know your thoughts. Hey, if you're new to Yob and you want to get involved and like follow us and see everything that's going on, we are on all the socials. Well, I say all, but it's just Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Your Other Bros. We'd love it if you followed us. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe. We would love it if you subscribe to our YobTube channel. Sign up for notifications, never miss an episode of Manly Monday. State of the Yob is coming up in a couple weeks. So stay tuned for that. If you missed any of our blogs, podcasts, postings on our site, State of the Yob will catch you up. Like this video if you liked it. Don't like it if you don't. But still like it, actually. That would help. So once again, my name is Tom, and for all your other brothers, I just want to remind you to speak meekly with others, chase madly after God, be manly everywhere in between.